So in this lesson, we're going to continue working with texture, and we're going to draw a brick wall with our pen that we used on our cubes. So the supplies we'll need are the sketchbook paper we've been using, a pencil to draw out our initial composition that we're going to draw over with pen, and our pen. So again, when we were working with pen, I want you to slow down. Be very mindful of the marks you are making. If you build up value too dark in an area, there's no going back to lighten it up. So just slow down, make sure you are building up that value slowly. So here's the image we're going to be working with. It's a brick wall with kind of some different sized bricks and textures. Here's the pen I'm going to use, and then I'm just going to use a regular number 2 pencil to sketch this out. You can use a mechanical pencil if you want, but I'm just going to roughly sketch out the shapes of these bricks, and then I'm going to start putting in the areas that are going to have different values added to them with pen. And then I have my light source coming from the top left, creating my midtones and my core shadows. I'm going to start by sketching out this square brick first, and I'm going to give it a little bit rough edges. I'm going to do these lines fairly light. I mean, none of these lines are going to stay. When I go in over pen, those are going to be my final lines. So I'm just going to roughly put in my square. So now I'm going to sketch in those thin lines of mortar that go all the way around the brick. And I'm drawing a little darker than I normally would, just out of habit. I'm trying to keep this as light as I can, but again, once we go over it in pen, all these lines are either going to be covered or we can erase them and make them go away. So now I'm going to figure out where the lines are of the mortar that's going down, and I'm just going to start building all the bricks based on where this mortar is going to go. And since I'm sketching it lightly, I can go through, and I don't like the size of this brick. I think it should be a little shorter. I can just shorten it up and erase the lines I've drawn since I am doing them light. And make sure you have your photo reference handy so you can follow those lines. Always have it up. Remember, we're trying to look at our reference 50% of the time and drawing 50% of the time. So this is kind of the line of where the end of the photo reference is. So you don't have to draw all the way to the edge. If it's not in your photo reference, you don't have to draw it. You can see all these lines are very rough. So I think this might be a little off. So again, I'm drawing light enough I can go in and I can erase it. Yeah, see, that needs to be up higher. So this whole brick kind of needs to move up. So drawing light enough, you can just erase it. So now I'm going to bring in my photo reference. I'm going to kind of look for where I'm going to be building up these darker values. You can see the highlights, the midtones, the core shadows. I'm just going to kind of draw in these shapes. I'm just kind of looking for rough areas, not putting anything dark in, just rough guidelines of where I'm going to shade these. And I can start going in and kind of defining the edges of these bricks a little bit better. Now that I've kind of roughed them in where they're going to go, I can start defining, where the mortar between them kind of comes in and goes overlaps, and where there's little cracks and where the bricks kind of are rounded on the edges or bumpy across the top. Again, I have my photo reference in front of me, and I'm just looking up at it and seeing where my lines are at that I might need to change or add. So now I'm going to start looking for these little cracks and crevices that I can go in and start defining these lines on each brick. It's easy with the darker areas. They have a pretty pronounced edge to them, so those are going to be easy to go in. It's the little minor details that are going to be a little more difficult to find. And I can go in, once I have some of these areas defined, I can go in and just lightly hatch with my pencil. These are all going to get covered up. They're going to be pretty dark with our pen. I'm just doing some light hatching that's going to just start telling me where I'm going to put in the value with the pen. So I bring in my photo reference, and you can see where I'm kind of going. I have this crisp line here, and I've shaded in the value. And then I have a little dark area there that I've just hatched in with a little value, and just defining some of these edges that are going to be easy when I start working with pen. I'll know where those lines are. And again, I'm not doing a ton of detail. I mean, I'm trying to get these shapes pretty close for the darker shadows, but I'm not going in and putting all these little dots in with pencil. I'm going to wait and do that with pen. I'm just putting these larger areas of dark value and defining those. The tiny little dots, those are going to be easy to do with a pen. There's no reason to do them with the pencil and then just go on top of them with a pen. And I'm just going through and doing some erasing if it needs to be done. I'm just going through and I'm basically putting these areas in as kind of landmarks for when I'm working, so I can kind of put all the details around. So anything dark cracks like this are going to help me when I start putting in the tiny detail around them to kind of tell me where I'm at, where I'm going. And there's tiny little directional lines in here. You can put those in if it helps you. I'm not going to put a ton of those. I'm going to wait and do most of those with pen. And I'm trying to match the shapes of the kind of the cracks in the rock, and then I can just go right over those with pen. Again, I'm just kind of defining the shape of areas that are going to be my core shadows and my midtones and my highlighted areas. Not doing any super detail, but I'm just kind of going in and putting where the dark spots are going to be and kind of the lighter spots are going to be. I certainly don't want you to rush through this. There's not a ton of detail, but the more you put on here as kind of landmarks where to work, the easier it's going to be when you're working with pen. So I'm constantly bringing in my photo reference, making sure kind of everything's landing in the right spot, adding the major dark areas that are really going to help me. So this is the end of part one of our brick texture drawing with pen. It's just our pencil composition, just our kind of our roadmap to where we're going to be going with pen. So we're just focused on the really the core shadow parts. We're not worried about the tiny little dots and details of the highlighted areas. We're just worried about where the dark cracks are, and that's going to help us when we start working with pen.